Today, the rupee has become weaker and weaker. It has grown from 60 to 70 to 80 and now is nearing 90. Horrifying. Didn't someone say that India was a story of Viksit Bharat? Did someone not say that India is a great country? How can you be a great country if your rupee becomes weaker? One could hear several politicians criticizing the previous government for letting the rupee slip to 60. Why do currencies fall in value? Many reasons. One of the reasons is, hi, this is RN Bhaskar from Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. It's a channel that deals with policy, with with business stories, and occasional conversations. But this time, we look at a policy on how to determine which currency was strong and which currency was weak and which currency was the weakest. We decided to do the story because all of a sudden last month, we looked at a Bloomberg chart. You can see the chart on the screen. And the chart told you that the Indian rupee was the worst performing rupee in Asia. Didn't someone say that India was a story of Viksit Bharat? Did someone not say that India is a great country? How can you be a great country if your rupee becomes weaker? And then I know some government officials say, but that's a foreign data. That's a foreign chart. Look at Indian numbers. We are not so bad. The rupee is strengthening. Oh, really? When this government came to power in 2014, one could hear several politicians criticizing the previous government for letting the rupee slip to 60.
रुपये की कीमत जिस तेजी से गिर रही है, अब कभी-कभी तो लगता है कि दिल्ली सरकार और रुपये के बीच में कंपटीशन चल रहा है, किसकी आबरू तेजी से गिरती चली जा रही है.
And they said, when we come to power within a year, we'll make it come back to 40 rupees to a dollar. What happened to that promise? Forgotten? Or was that just an election speech? Today, the rupee has become weaker and weaker. It has grown from 60 to 70 to 80 and now is 90. Horrifying. And what does a weakening rupee tell you? A weakening rupee will tell you that no matter what the government charts tell you, inflation is there. Inflation has effectively been 40% or more because of 40 rupees, from 60 rupees, it's gone to 90 rupees. Depending on the way you calculate, your inflation could be anywhere between 30% to as much as 40%. And you think that is all that I have to say? No. Government numbers often conceal. And do remember that your rupee fall does not appear very, very serious because it's measured against the dollar. If you look at the dollar, you'll find the dollar has already depreciated at least 20% in the last 1.5 years. So you have 20% depreciation of the dollar and the rupee depreciation is against the dollar even further. It means that the Indian rupee is weaker than a weakening currency. When the dollar falls, Indian rupee should have become stronger against the dollar. If the Indian rupee continues to become weaker against the dollar, it means that it is in a worse condition than whatever the government says. And so we decided to look at the numbers in a different way. And we looked at the one commodity that every country learns to respect. And that is gold. In the last 1.5 years, 2 years, the prices of gold have been climbing globally. And so we said, okay, they've been climbing. But has the climb been uniform in every country? So what we did was, we took the price of gold in London, we took the price of gold in the US, we took the price of gold in China, and we took the price of gold in Indian rupees. Now, India has a price of gold as price per 10 grams. The rest of the world has a price of gold as gold per troy ounce. Ounce is different from 10 grams. Ounce is about 31 grams. Then we converted the dollar or the other currency into the Indian rupee. So that the chart that you see in front of you is a chart that has all the prices in Indian rupees. Prices as were there a year ago, prices that were there 6 months ago, and prices as of the recent past. The date is given. When you look at those numbers and then you find out which country weakened the most, which country gold became the most expensive, even without looking at the numbers, you can tell me. The country which saw the highest increase in gold prices was India. There was a price of gold which went up, but more important, there was inflation. There was a weakening of the value of the rupee. And the 50-odd% that that gold prices climbed in India, in Indian rupees, represented both the weakening rupee, inflation, and the value of gold. Look at that number and compare that with the statistics that the RBI and the government come out with. They say inflation's under control. Really? Look at these numbers. They will tell you another story. It climbed against the dollar by 47%. It climbed against the rupee by 50%, suggesting that in India, the price of the rupee fell even against a falling dollar. Why do currencies fall in value? Many reasons. One of the reasons is the very poor export performance. Export performance is poor because the country's cost of production is very high, they cannot export. The country's quality of production is very bad, they cannot export. Remember the cup syrup story? We exported substandard cup syrup which killed people in Zambia and in other countries. They killed people in India also. That is substandard production. You cannot export because you have not developed markets. India has kept on looking at the Western markets, when the real markets for growth are in the East. So exports go down, imports go up, and because of the deficit in trade, the rupee becomes weaker. That's one reason. The second reason is unproductive spending. When you spend on infrastructure where the bridges collapse and the roads develop potholes, that's ineffective spending. When you spend on projects where there's a 50% to 70% cost escalation, that's inefficient spending. When you give free doles, freebies to populations so that you get votes, that's ineffective spending. Doles have also one more problem. When you give doles, you teach a person not to work. So the whole generation learns not to work, and that becomes a burden on the country and weakens the country. And lastly, a currency weakens when you don't have jobs. And you don't have jobs because you have not created a business environment where investments can come in. If investments come in, new factories come up. New businesses come up. Businesses come up, new jobs get created. New jobs get created, there's purchasing power. Purchasing power, industries get stronger. And as volumes grow, the cost of production for industry goes down. You have anti-inflation, currency remains stable, and you learn to export, and the country is strong. A country's currency, when it becomes weak, indicates that its policy making for the economy has not been good. When a country spends more time dividing people instead of focusing on increasing production, you weaken a country. And that is why the Indian rupee is weak. You want India to be strong? You want India to remain a Viksit Bharat? Concentrate on the value of the rupee. If you don't do that, you will have gone against not only election promise, you'll have gone against the very core of the country's strength. Don't do that. Make India strong. India deserves better. Thank you. And yes, do tune in to our weekly analysis of news on a News Behind the News program every Saturday morning at 8:15 a.m.